Good evening. Welcome to Focus on Liberia. I am the West African correspondent, Amara. Welcome to the latest news update on the continent. Focus on Liberia uses this opportunity to come to you with latest development of the continent, things that happens, and what we need to do as a continent to see how we can progress. Because a lot have been making headlines across the globe, especially when it comes to Liberia, how President George Weah considered defeat before ever the announcement of the runoff presidential election result, which was taken into high accolade. He got a standing ovation across the world, and almost everybody giving an accolation because it's very peculiar. Especially, I'm not saying African leaders do accept defeat, but maybe sometimes just after court cases or sometimes even when just after the last result be announced. But to him, he deemed it necessary to even accept defeat or concede defeat before ever the elections result we actually announced. So today we have series of news headlines that I am going to make sure that I read them audible to you so that you can understand and see what really went on. Joseph Zimbabwe promises to end bad leadership. That is what he's saying. Progress at talks over Ethiopia. We have some of these headlines that we are going to first. Joseph Zimbabwe is the president-elect of Liberia. He promised to end bad leadership in Liberia. Fantastic. Then we have progress talks over Ethiopia, Red Sea, access. The Ramaphosa welcome Israel-Hamas deal. Historic movement as Cameroon gets new malaria vaccine, which is an accolade for Africa. Then Ghana MP apologizes to footballer Harry Maguire. We know why he apologized. Then pilot hopes to inspire Liberia with a solo flight. Congo-Brazzaville mourn victims after stampede. Then we also see Zimbabwe bishop condemn the resurgence of violence into the country. Then Nigeria and Germany sign gas deal. Uganda probes unidentified illness that kill around 12 people. So let's first start in Liberia. In Liberia, we are seeing Liberian President-elect lauds Weah for accepting defeat. He praised President Weah for accepting defeat. In his first address to the nation since his victory in the runoff elections, Liberia's President-elect Joseph Boakai has lauded George Weah for accepting defeat after one term in office. I want to thank him for being gracious in his concession after what will go down as one of the most closely contested elections in Liberia's political history, Mr. Boakai said. A former vice president, Mr. Boakai won a runoff election after securing 50.64% of the total valid vote cast, against Weah 49.36%. Mr. Boakai takes office in January when Mr. Weah steps down. The president-elect said he would form a transitional team to work with the Weah government to ensure smooth handover of power. In a speech delivered from his private office in the capital, Monrovia, Mr. Boakai thanked Liberians for electing him. You have placed your trust in me to lead with the demand for the change you want, and that change begins now. Our country is not poor. The problem with our country is bad leadership in all phases of society, including the institutions of the state, Mr. Boakai said. He also vowed to tackle the major problem of corruption in government, especially in high places, and to spearhead development, including the building of roads. Maybe we could say, I started it, you end it, and you should end it well. Now, we are now seeing Boakai take on that oath, and before his supporters, even when he has not been inaugurated. But as a statesman, he came out plainly to also congratulate George Weah for conceding defeat. Let's be frank. Let's accept reality. It takes only few African leaders to do what George Weah did. Only few African leaders to do what George Weah did. So it's very weird, and he needs to be thanked and appreciated for what he did. And the president-elect has publicly manifested that by saying the president-elect acted as a statesman. It was a honorable move. But let's watch and see if whether Joseph Boakai will also live up to expectation. Because this is Africa, we all know what happens, and we all know how things go when the high expectation of people. Because each time you take over a country, you expect a lot of people to think that maybe you are in there to just solve the problem, tackle them all. But Liberia's situation could not have been created during George Weah regime. Maybe it got exacerbated, but no one can say he created the problem. Everything we can say got exacerbated during his regime, but this thing started for quite a long time. And George Weah also got accolation across the world. Let's see. Liberian President Weah has been hailed for his sportsmanship for conceding to his rival in the presidential race from across the political divide and the region. This is the time for the graciousness in defeat. This is a time for graciousness in defeat. A time to place our country above party and patriotism over personal interest. The footballer star who has served as Liberia's president since 2018 said, the 57-year-old phone call to congratulate Joseph Boakai on Friday night has saved the country, which has a history of brutal civil conflict from the weekend of tension. These are great times in Liberia and in Africa because such action on the part of a sitting president is very, very rare. Liberia human rights advocate Hassan Bility said to the BBC. He is the director of the Global Justice and Research Project, which has been documenting evidence of war crimes committed during the two civil wars, in which an estimated 250,000 people were killed. For him, Mr. Weah's concession in the second round, 3 days before the official results are due to be announced, was not only the action of a great sportsman, but a high mark of statesmanship and peace. The president has 49.11% of the votes so far from the result of 99.58%. That was then, not now. Polling station. Mr. Weah's special aide, Sekou Kalaso Jomandi, said this move did not come as a surprise. That is the kind of a person he is. He's a man of peace. He's a man who believes the will of the people should always be respected, and he will continue to do that, he told the BBC. The president doesn't believe that one person should lose their life because of any political struggle or one man's quest to be president by all costs. Liberian political analyst Abdullahi Kiatamba said, Mr. Weah had looked at the figures and realized his pathway to victory was almost impossible. I think this is a victory for Liberian democracy. For an incumbent to concede is a testament to the maturity of our democracy, he told the BBC. The elections are the first since the exit of UN peacekeepers who were deployed after the official end of the civil war in 2003. Samura Wulkuli, the country's deputy finance minister, told the BBC the president had been determined to ensure the polls were conducted with the utmost integrity. He would forever be remembered for his patriotic move, he said. The regional bloc ECOWAS has also come out with a gushing statement of thanks to Mr. Weah. The regional bloc your gracious acceptance of the result of the election is indicative of your statesmanship and commitment to the consolidation of peace and security in Liberia, said Umar Ali Toure, president of ECOWAS Commission, who has commended the free, fair, and autonomously organized election. ECOWAS has been at the forefront of effort to bring stability to Liberia at one stage, sending up to 12,000 soldiers to the country in the 1990s, with Nigeria troops forming the backbone of the peacekeeping force known as ECOMOG. George Weah's name has been trending on social media across much of Africa, including Nigeria, where people have been saying that while his concession is a positive move, it is not unique. People are saying that the Jonathan's effect is catching on. Former President of Nigeria, Goodluck Jonathan, wanted to get another term in 2015, was defeated, and he called up the opposition leader, Muhammadu Buhari, to congratulate him. Mania Dan Ali, former editor-in-chief of BBC Daily Trust newspaper, told the BBC, it was unprecedented because usually presidents sitting tight will never concede. That is why George Weah has also shown a lot of grace by accepting the will of Liberians and congratulating his opponents. Dan Ali says he has noted certain amount of pride in Nigeria and Liberia following its example. Nigerians are like big brother to Liberia. Remember, Nigeria shed their own blood to keep Liberia together, to help them get them out of the civil war. More than 4 billion United States dollar, 3.2 billion euro of Nigerians' money was spent on ECOMOG. Nigerians who always like to climb to the giants of Africa, we'd be happy to say that in this particular case, they show the way. Most analysts agree Mr. Weah has shown a red card to those flouting democracy in West Africa, where there has been upsurge in military coup and disputed elections. George Weah has set a stage for other countries to follow. Loretta Pope Kai, chair of National Civil Society Council of Liberia, told the BBC, adding, it shows the power of the people mattered. Mr. Ability agreed. Liberia represents, in my own opinion, a beacon of hope for Africa. Looking back, Mr. Weah's presidency, he said that the footballer turned politician should also be remembered for tolerance and some infrastructural development. His supporters nicknamed him bad road medicine after he once said he was the medicine needed to treat the bad roads. It is amazing to see that there aren't any political prisoners in jail. There aren't journalists in jail. Free speech was at its highest peak. Mr. Ability said, both Mr. Weah and Boakai attended crowded church service in the capital, Monrovia, on Sunday, where they addressed their supporters. We would not have been in church today if I had done what others wanted me to do, said the president, who will step down in January. We cannot also blame ourselves for not getting victory. It is a clear learning curve. During his concession speech, he warned his successor that the closeness of result reveals a deep division within our country. As we transition to a new administration, we must be vigilant to the dangers of division and must work together to find a common ground. Social media has been full of comments reflecting this division. With Liberians documenting his successes, like increasing salaries and improving education, and his failures, corruption scandal, and poor funding of football. Indeed, the fact that the national team has failed to reach continental finals over the last 5 years prompted Saros Yanni, an executive committee member for the Liberian Football Association, to post on Facebook, George Weah, you were voted out for failing football too. Meanwhile, at a Baptist service, the 78-year-old president-elect told the congregation he was taking his endorsement seriously. I know what the Liberian people need and deserve. His focus on the campaign trial has been on fighting corruption and boosting agricultural production. But with such high expectation in a divided nation, Mr. Ability has 2 pieces of advice for him. 1, maintain the peace. 2, pursue justice. Because no matter no specific president is going to be able to satisfy the desires and needs of 76-year-old underdeveloped country. Fantastic. Fantastic. So we are watching at this thing, and we need to be very careful on how to handle certain issues, because that is how it is. Now, let's come now to Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe bishop condemn resurgence of violence in the southern part of Africa. Roman Catholic bishops in Zimbabwe have condemned a resurgence of political violence linked to a series of planned elections. In a pastoral letter, the bishop said the polls have been wantonly called. They said it seemed the voices of voters could be easily ignored. The Opposition Citizen Coalition for Change, that is CCC, has complained that the recall elections are part of campaign by the ruling ZANU-PF party to secure a 2/3 majority in parliament. It fell short of the target during the general election in August. Let's come to Ethiopia in the Horn of Africa. Progress at talks over Ethiopia Red Sea access. Ethiopia talks with the self-declared Republic of Somaliland about the possibility of using a port in Berbera. Two towns are progressing well. State-owned Ethiopia Press Agency has posted on Facebook, quoting the government minister. Ethiopia Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said in October that access to the Red Sea was a matter of existence for his country, remarks which raise anxiety over neighboring countries with coastlines. Somaliland seceded from Somalia more than 30 years ago, but it is not recognized by African Union, that is AU, or by the UN as an independent state. Transport and Logistics Minister Ali Musimi briefed a cabinet meeting chaired by Mr. Abiy on the talks reported, noting that Ethiopia uses the port in Djibouti for 95% of the import and export. The minister said efforts were underway to find alternative port, and talks for the use of Berbera port were progressing well, EPA added. Talks with the Kenyan government were also progressing for the use of the Lamu port, the EPA reported. Then let's come into Central Africa, Cameroon. Some people think that it is actually in West Africa, given its proximity with where West Africa lies, especially with the like of Nigeria. Let's see. Historic movement as Cameroon gets new malaria vaccine. Maybe that could help Liberia and Sierra Leone, including Guinea. Cameroon has received more than 3,300 doses of new malaria vaccine, the first to be approved by WHO, Health Organization. World Health Organization. Health Minister Manamu Malachari described it as historic movement. Kenya, Ghana, and Malawi have also started distributing the malaria vaccine, which has also been administered in 4 doses. Over the next few weeks, deliveries are expected in Burkina Faso, Liberia, Nigeria, and Sierra Leone. Good news for Liberia, for Nigeria, for Sierra Leone, Burkina Faso, and Niger. All these countries are actually in West Africa. Africa accounts for the vast majority of malaria cases worldwide. The disease kills more than 600,000 people globally each year, most of them children. Rape and escape reality in war hit Sudan. That is what the activists are saying. That rape actually is a what? Rape in war-torn Sudan is actually a daily reality. A rights activist in Sudan says sexual violence against women has become deliberate tactics in the civil war, which started in April. Hala Akamurin, who runs the strategic initiative for women in the Horn of Africa, says 17% of documented cases of sexual violence are gang rape, and that the targeting of women and girls has also become part of everyday reality. She told the BBC Newsday radio program that both of the Sudanese army and the paramilitary support forces, rapid support forces, had carried out attacks on women, but that the paramilitaries appear to be using it as a tactic to intimidate communities. So here they rape women seriously. When this community notice, they will just vacate to ensure that they do not encounter more problems. A conference is being held in Kenya capital Nairobi to tighten the impact of the war on Sudan, to highlight the impact of the war on Sudan. Let's come into Congo-Brazzaville, more victims of stampede. Congo-Brazzaville has been observing a day of mourning after 31 people died in a stampede during an army recruitment drive at a stadium in the capital city on Monday. I don't know what Denise Nguesso is doing. After taking over 30 to 40 years in power, still forcing people, recruiting people, and now sees the result. The government ordered the flags fly at high mass and drinking places shot as mark of respect for the victims. The government initially announced that 37 people had died in the stampede, but later advised the figure to reverse the figure to 31. About 145 people were injured, with 15 still in the hospital. An investigation is underway into the cause of the stampede. Local sources told the BBC that young people aged between 18 to 25 years had gone in huge numbers at the stadium in Brazzaville in the hope of being recruited into the army. Maybe the army, the police, teaching job are so funny now in Africa. Everybody wants to become one because it's an easy way of getting maybe political reward in time of cheap employment with less salary. Around 42% of young people are employed in Congo-Brazzaville, with many seeing the army as one of the few places where they can go and secure job. Sad. That is why no longer people are not joining the army because it's their will, because it's their calling, because it's their intention. But they are joining the army because it's a means where they can get employment. The army said it has suspended the recruitment in Brazzaville following the stampede. That is why the army is saying. Let's see. Ramaphosa welcomes Israel-Hamas deal. South Africa President Cyril Ramaphosa has welcomed the deal between Israel and Hamas for a 4-day pause in the fighting. The start of the pause is due to be announced within 24 hours. As part of the deal, Hamas will free 50 hostages in it seized last month. Israel will release 150 Palestinians prisoners. In a statement, Mr. Ramaphosa said, "As a member of the international community that stands for peace, justice, and the rule of international law in all parts of the world, South Africa welcomes the agreement reached. It is my hope that the achievement of this pause will strengthen the efforts to achieve an outright end to the recruitment to the current conflict. South Africa's government, led by the National Congress, ANC, African National Congress, is a long-standing ally of the Palestinians. It has asked the International Criminal Court, ICC, to issue an arrest warrant for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu by mid-December over Israel's military operation in Gaza. The government accuses Israel of committing war crimes in Gaza. Israel has said that this is an act of self-defense. It launched a major military operation in Gaza in response to the cross-border attack by Hamas on the 7th of October, in which at least 200 people were killed and more than 200 others taken as hostage. Gaza Hamas Health-Run Ministry says that at least 14,000 people have been killed in the territory since Israel launched its retaliatory campaign. That is what they are saying. Let's come to this. Pilot hopes to inspire Liberians with solo flight. A US-based Liberian pilot, Adnan Yonli, is due to arrive back in the country of his birth after becoming the first black African person to complete a solo transatlantic flight in a single-engine aircraft, a 1976 Beechcraft Sondor. Mr. Yonli embarked on his journey from Maryland in the United States and then crossed the North Atlantic from Canada to Greenland, Iceland, Faroe Islands, the UK, France, and Spain. He reached the African continent in Morocco and has now safely landed in Dakar, Senegal. Mr. Yone is expected to touch down in Liberia's Robert International Airport at 16:00 GMT on Wednesday, that is today, according to his flight schedule. In a motivational statement, Mr. Yone said his dream not only of being a pilot but a source of inspiration. While training, it occurred to me that instead of just learning how to fly, I could also be a peace setter and a source of inspiration for my generation, the millennials, to do something extraordinary, he said. Mr. Yone said, to leave a mark on Liberians, especially my peers born after 1980, who have not seen a Liberia-born pilot flying a plane. Our parents told us about Air Liberia flown by a Liberian pilot. We never saw it. This is an eye-opener for them to know the dreams can be a reality if you get your sight on a goal and a dogged determination to achieve it, he added. Let's see, finally, what the Ghanaian MP is apologizing for. Harry Maguire, Ghana MP Isaac Agogo, sorry for mocking Manchester United star. Cannot do this without going into sport. A Ghanaian MP has apologized to Manchester United footballer Harry Maguire after mocking him last year. Mr. Isaac Adungu was debating the budget when he compared Vice President Muhammadu Bumuwanian's economic management to Maguire's performance on the pitch. Maguire has come in for heavy criticism from some fans, but fellow footballers have come to his defense. On Tuesday, Mr. Adungu said he wanted to correct the record and hail Maguire as a transformational footballer. He was a key player for Manchester United, Mr. Adungu said during the budget debate, but he did not let in his criticism of Vice President Weah. As for Maguire, he is now at the IMF with a cup in hand, he added. Mr. Weah is the head of the country's economic management team as Ghana faces its most severe economic crisis in years. As government debt has soared, the country had to take 3 billion United States dollar, 2.4 euro loan from the International Monetary Fund, IMF. In December 2022, inflation in Ghana reached a record 54%, but has since fallen to around 35%, and which it were so in other West African countries. A year ago, Mr. Adungu compared Mr. Buwamian to Harry Maguire, who Adungu said became the biggest threat at the center of the Manchester United defense. The video of the speech was widely shared on social media. It came amid a torrent of criticism of the footballer. England manager Gary Southgate has also condemned the mockery as ridiculous treatment and said he has been an absolute stalwart for the team. Mr. Maguire's mother also defended her son and said that the abuse he has faced has been disgraceful and unacceptable. Some Ghanaians have been acting to Mr. Adoko's apology, saying that the Manchester United player has really improved, but the same cannot be said of the managers of the Ghanaian economy. Others feel such a comparison should not have been made. According to Mr. Adonko, the Ghanaian government has not increased taxes and tariffs on services as part of the agreement with IMF. This caused widespread anger among voters and triggered protests over the rising of cost and living and unemployment in the country. Despite this, Ghana government New Patriotic Front has re-elected Baomi as a candidate for 2024 election. He will be the first Muslim to contest the presidency under the NPP's banner since the multi-party democracy was recorded in 1992. Mr. Baomi was promised to lead a united, energized NPP in the election and that it is the only party that can transform Ghana. What? The only party that can transform Ghana? Just maybe. Just maybe. The only party that maybe we lead Ghana into other things. So this was actually very interesting, and we all wish to thank George Weah for conceding defeat prior to the announcement of the election, which is actually unarguably very rare in our African continent. Let's accept that. Let's accept reality. Let's congratulate the former footballer and former African best, former world best, former Ballon d'Or. Very unique person. He has done that. And let us also accept the fact that he has a place in history. He's the first person as a footballer to be elected president of a country. He's a space setter. He has done that. And I think, as he rightly said, it is not like a defeat. It is the voice of the Liberians, and he's accepted the result. And also, he's going to use this as a learning curve. And we're going to ensure that, I think, based on that, he's using this as a learning curve. I think George Weah still have the intention to come back, maybe to still form as an opposition, the strongest opposition. I think all he needs to do is to rearrange his house and maybe set the space very well, because 49 and 50%, I think it's just similar. It's just like when I was attending school in Guinea. One of our mathematics teacher used to tell us that 50, which is the deadline or a reference point for pass, it means +1 is pass, -1 is fail. So I think George Weah -1 from his vote. That was what brought his failure. +1, Waka got it and he passed. But still, it's just something one. Maybe, just maybe, come next election, George Weah will study hard and get that 1 point so that he can conquer. Thank you. It's been me, Edward Amara. Focus on Liberia, West African correspondent, coming to you with the latest development on the continent. And congratulations to Joseph Nyuma Boakai. And I think Edward Nyuma Amara is also congratulating you. And luckily enough for Liberians, the tribe that got elected is one of the minorities. It's one of the minority tribes into Liberia. And this provides a platform for him to form an amalgamated government, the government of national unity, and maybe got other people involved. Sometimes it is not good for Africa to elect a tribe which serves or which is maybe the hub of the country or the majority. It creates queer issues. But there are times also the minority tend to be very powerful, which may end up to create problems. And very rare in Liberia, typical Liberians like that, to be elected. George Weah, one, or maybe Samuel Kedo, military man, was another typical Liberian. Now we are now seeing Joseph Nyuma Boakai coming in. I think, effectively, this is good news. Congratulations to Liberians, and congratulations to all those who voted peacefully, because both the Weah supporters and Boakai supporters maintained their peace and unity. That was why the election got huge accolades across the country. Liberians, you deserve peace, you deserve respect, you deserve patriotism, and let's hope and pray that Boakai live up to the expectation. Thank you. Good night.